Before heading to the video, if you haven't subscribed the channel, do subscribe it and don't forget to click the bell icon for the latest update notification. If you like the video, do like, comment and share. Stay tuned with LearnBay.co. Happy learning!
From today onwards, I will be starting a different or new module, which is called Natural Language Preprocessing, NLP as we know it for short. Okay, so we are going to get started with this module. Okay, all right. Everyone can hear me, right? Perfectly. Is there any audio issues or anything that I should know about?
No, Prakash, it's fine. Seems fine.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, then it's good. All right. Okay, before we start with the practice, let's try to understand what we are dealing here with. Okay, so I will ask you certain questions and I hope you guys are able to answer them. So what is the difference between structured and unstructured data?
Structured data comes into Tableau.
And what about unstructured data?
It's random.
Random as in like
Random. It doesn't follow any structure. It's like there are paragraphs and commas and semicolons, all these things.
Very good, very good. Yeah, that is a good definition. Anyone else wants to contribute?
Structured is organized, unstructured is not organized into.
Like, isn't that a very English dictionary definition? Miss, in terms of data science, what do we understand when I say I have structured data, and when I say, oh, I have unstructured data? What do you like? What clicks into your mind immediately?
Structured data will be rows, columns. And unstructured will be text, as in flat files text.
Flat file text. Very good, very good. Okay, so why we are interested in unstructured data at all?
Because there is huge amount of data and we can come up with insights.
Yeah, you can say that. Basically, in real world, almost close to 80% of data is basically unstructured. So as you might understand, if you were to scrape the internet or if you were to do any of that sort, mostly you will have to deal with unstructured data. So we are not always going to get values from a DB property or not getting a value always from a CSV. That might not happen in real world because a lot of data is primarily just unstructured, which means no fixed structure, or as I like to call it, you cannot define them into M into N arrays. Okay, so you cannot define them in terms of arrays properly. It is not going to be applicable. So that proves to be a challenge, and NLP ideally I personally feel is a slightly harder challenge than the computer vision and the classic data science techniques that you have seen. NLP tends to become a bit hard, but don't you guys worry, I will definitely try to ensure that that is understood and covered by everyone in the proper fashion, of course. But just letting you guys know that this is the scenario that NLP tends to become a harder problem after a while as we go along, and it does takes a bit of time and practice to actually master the techniques of NLP. But even without that, even without understanding immediately the unstructured part, let's try to deal or understand the structured issue. So let's say I have a structured data set. So the hallmark of a structured data set is usually it has fixed number of rows and columns, or at least fixed number of columns. Rows can keep on increasing with real-time data. So let's say one is like name, Other might be the price, discounts, okay, seller, and so on. There could be different fields, and row 1, row 2 can keep on increasing. So this is your row 1, and similarly further along we have different number of rows, right? So that is what we are so used to seeing the in data science, or whatever you must have done so far. You guys are very used to seeing all this. Agree?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. So this is not a big issue. You know all the basic pre-processing techniques of handling structured data. So if I just ask you very quickly, what are some basic pre-processing steps for a structured data set? Means if I want to clean this data set which is structured, what steps ideally I should follow?
Missing values, duplicate values, null value, D types, correlation.
Missing values, duplicate values. Maybe outliers.
Scaling.
Yeah, fine. Scaling.
Zero variance check correlation.
Zero variance. Then correlation. Okay. And yeah, these are some basic steps that you ideally take. You take care of missing values. You try to delete any duplicate values. You try to remove outliers ideally. You scale them based on, again, properties of data itself. You check for zero variance columns. You check for columns with high correlation. The idea is, and of course, there is a lot of kind of feature selection technique that also goes in the whole process. So we will come to that a bit later. Okay. This is clear so far?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Now, if I were to present you with the unstructured part, and let's see how we will deal with all this. Okay. Good. Hey guys, someone's mic is on, I guess. Okay. Okay, so now I start with unstructured data. Now, let's say I give you the row number, but then I provide you in another column, I just provide you a text. Okay. So again, this could be a file, this could be a website where we might be scraping all the data from. So it could be like, or it could be like, so I went to mall today and it was totally empty. Okay. Now there is a second column, oh sorry, second row. This is the number, and this could be, hello, I want to talk with you, or I want to talk to you. See, now can you tell me what is the difficult part here?
To categorize the second column.
Sorry, I did not get it. To categorize this. Okay. All right. To categorize the second column. So when you want to categorize, what do you really want to achieve?
The emotion behind the sentences.
Lemmatization.
Yeah, fine. So you want to get this emotion or context. Let's call this word context right now. So you want to understand the context first. Context plus meaning right now. Now, let me tell you, it's not an easy task, first of all, okay? It will take a lot of practice and there are so many different techniques these days, which makes it definitely very hard. But no, not to worry here. Okay, fine. So I am dealing with context plus meaning problem. Now, how do you really derive the meaning of any sentence? or any language basically, in your own head? How do you do it?
We just don't look at our sentence. We take it like from some other part of a conversation, and we reach to that conclusion that which context it is.
Okay, all right. Any other explanation?
Every word has a meaning, and that gets linked by all those fillers like how should I put it, the verbs and the nouns to connect them.
Okay, yeah, that you can also say. Okay, so what if I say, this is a radical idea for you guys at least right now. Look, words are nothing but they are basically symbols for some information. Okay, some information you want to convey, and these words just happen to be symbols that you are used to seeing every day. So the idea is, and there are books here, and I can provide you with some books as well, which are about the statistical nature of natural language. Okay, so some really good books have been written, and we will be talking about some statistical nature of these language, basically how language is formed and how we practice language every day. So we do observe that there are some words which we use more or far more, and then there are words which in a dictionary which we use pretty less compared to the other words. So these verbs and conjunctions do get used a lot. We do observe that. And some specific words kind of get a very sparse representation or a very limited representation in any text that you read. And then it also depends on the context, right? So if I ask you a very simple question, I might have even asked in some other class. So when I say bull market, what do you think about immediately?
Stocks.
Okay. Why did you think about stocks, if I may ask?
Bull market is related to stock exchange.
Because of the symbol bull that has in that stock outside stock exchange of New York, that bull sign, and that connects us to.
Okay.
And we have been conditioned to
Yes, very good.
associate
That's the
this
best
word with
Yeah, that's the best
stock
answer.
market.
Because you have been conditioned with that approach. If I were to ask a 4-year kid about bull market, what do you think they are going to tell me?
With the sell bulls, yeah.
Yeah, a market where they sell bulls. It happens in rural India actually. Sometimes there are animal markets literally where sale of animals is done basically. Okay, and so there are those markets, but because the way you have been brought up in your life, the news that you read and any social media that you are consuming, bull market is almost ubiquitously linked to the upward rise of stock exchanges, right? But again, you can see if I drop the whole context and if you were not to know about anything about stocks or financial scenarios, in a very naive way, you might think bull market is a place where bulls are sold, and that you will not really be wrong. Even that is the correct, that is also a correct use of this phrase or these two words. If you agree with me. Now it's just not that simple. It's just like, okay, so bull itself can be used depending on context. So bull market can be understood in different contexts depending on what context we are setting. Forget about that. Even a simple word can be used as two ways. So book can be a noun and book can also be a verb. Have you noticed that ever?
Yes.
So can you use a book as a noun?
Yeah. The book is read by many people.
Very good. And how would you use it as verb?
If you do this, you'll be booked in under that section.
Yeah, or I booked the tickets to my flight yesterday. Yeah, very good. So book can be basically very easily used as verb as well as noun. So this is just the basic issue. Means what is where am I getting at is properties, and why it will become very hard after a while. You will realize this properties of natural language. Now, when I say natural language, what do I really mean? Usually language invented by humans. Basically, that is where I'm going at. Okay. So we are going to exclude our C, C++, Python, and binary and hexadecimals. Okay. We are going to stick only with natural language, and natural language is language invented by humans. Okay, very good. So can you tell me some properties, or can you think about few properties that might come handy or might come across with natural language? Sorry.
Semantics.
Sorry, I did not get that.
Semantics and grammar.
Okay. So, one sec. Okay. So one thing is definitely first. Okay, let me put it like this. One thing is of course grammar. So now, what is grammar exactly?
It's the way the words are structured, like noun
Not
comes
words,
first.
not. Okay, you should say like the way the words are all the different symbols in this language will be represented, and kind of a rule-based
Set of
ideas.
rules, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it is basically rule-based if you really think about these grammars, and this is why it is kind of fit into our mind by repetition, that you should try to remember rule. Although as you grow up, after a while you understand a lot of these rules happens to be very flexible, and depending on context actually you can switch few of them. And even it depends on country to country. What is applicable in England might not be applicable in USA. Okay, so language according to me is a very fluid thing. It will keep on changing generation by generation. So even if we have grammar books, it is very hard to follow. And again, these rules also tend to kind of change based on users itself. So exactly a pure English and conversational English, you might have realized there is a serious difference. Okay. All right. Very good. So that is one property that we have grammar. What could be the another property?
Subject, predicate type of impact words.
No, fine. Let's keep them all in grammar itself, right? No, these are evolved and defined in grammar itself. What else? Like, what is the natural way of thinking? Like when I say about natural language or language invented by humans, what or used, not invented, just it is used by humans as well for daily communication. What else do you find that is very common?
Slangs.
Vocabulary.
Vocabulary. Okay, fine. Let's call it vocabulary for now. Yeah, and
I was saying slangs.
yeah, vocabulary plus I'm just gonna come over there. Variation. So let's keep your slang idea right here. Vocabulary plus variations. So the variation is something which is non-formal or not technically correct, but still we use it because due to internet or due to fast typing or the culture that we are evolved. So it depends on culture basically. And this also makes it very hard, depends on culture.
And hybrid, as in English.
Okay. So of course, due to advent of internet and mixing of so many different cultures, we have also started to see the rise of hybrid languages, where we type in one script, but we mean the word in a different language. Okay. Good. That's very good. Any other
Connotation.
property? Sorry, what was what did you just say right now?
Annotation. Like the
Annotation.
tones. Yeah.
Did you say
Which tone you
annotation?
speak. Connotation. C. No, C. Connotation.
Oh,
C-O-N-N.
oh no. It's not called connotation. It's called connotation. Okay, that's what I was thinking. What is that word? Okay, no issue. Yeah. So it is called connotation. That's actually very important. So I remember when I was preparing for GRE, and over there we also just not have to remember, like, okay, so one of the famous ideas when you are preparing for GRE is like you have to read very hard technical words. And if you're especially not used to it, it does take the time. So there is like usually a list of 3,500 or 4,000 words that a person has to at least memorize or remember the idea of 2,000 or 2,500 words that will come in very handy any day. And so while remembering or while kind of reminding myself, I would also look at these various flashcards where the word will be written, their uses will be given, the pronunciation will be given. So because if you have a verbal test in TOEFL or IELTS actually, so over there your pronunciation should be really perfect. But one thing that was also provided was connotation. And it is actually very important. So connotation, different words have different meanings based on, again, general English literature. Some words are positive, some words are negative. So can you give me a good example where two words which almost have identical meanings, but one is a positive word, one is a very negative word?
The word positive?
Sorry, I was just saying, can you think about two words which have relatively almost similar meaning? In pure English, they have similar meaning, but historically, they have, one has a positive connotation, one has a negative connotation.
Just repeat the first line, sorry. Two words which are linked, isn't it?
No, almost have the same meaning. Almost have the same.
Meaning. Okay.
Almost have the same meaning. Means if you look in the dictionary, the meaning is not really different. But historically, one is a positive connotation, one is a negative connotation. So a simple word or simple, it is also a debate actually, that how should we refer them? Have you heard this debate? Like when talking to a person who might be suffering from some kind of a loss of limbs or functions, it is basically a discussion that we should not say handicapped. When you will look at the meaning, it's not really different actually. But handicapped has a negative connotation. Why?
It gives the idea that the person is limited.
Very good. Because the word cap itself is limiting basically because of your handy. The idea was if you are earlier, if you were missing limbs or something, you could not work in factories. Okay, simple idea. So you were basically capped in doing some very menial jobs only, which you could not do anything of importance. Earlier, like earlier in 19th century, when the industrial revolution was happening, again, people were required to use their limbs in order to work with these machines. Problem was people who were missing limbs were not able to do these things properly, and that's why the word capped comes. Now, in our day and generation, especially when advent of computers and there are so many technologies which can enable. So that's I think people have started to discuss different words that we should say it differently because handicapped has a very negative meaning. Okay, it is always almost used as kind of like telling that this person would not be able to do something. Okay, so again, if you look in dictionary, it is not very different actually. The meanings are very similar, but one has a positive connotation, other has a negative connotation. Did you get this idea?
Yes.
Even a lot of companies struggle with definitions these days. So how will they say things is, so they don't want to say gender-based hiring because again, so a lot of companies have started calling it diversity hiring now. Same problem. If you directly say gender-based hiring, it almost sounds biased. And diversity hiring, even internally, they understand basically it means the same thing, but they're not these days. You should not actually call it a gender-based hiring. You should be more into diversity hiring. Okay, again, same idea, almost same idea. So this is the basic point at the end of the day, that there are words and there are phrases which might have exact same meaning, but depending on the context, you should know which one is the right one, okay, or which word you should ideally go ahead with. Okay, so that is called connotation. Okay. Any other property of NLP that you can think about right now?
Context.
And context is fine. Context is all right. Context can also be in terms of computer languages as well. Context is just not natural language, actually. Yeah, Nitesh, perfect. Yeah, that's a correct example. Okay, let me put the final property, and this is what makes NLP really hard. The fifth property is natural language happens to be ambiguous. And this is the biggest difference between natural language and a computer constructed or a computer used language, actually. That natural language happens to be ambiguous. Why? Because of the some ideas I already showed you. It is ambiguous due to tone. It is ambiguous due to its meaning. Is ambiguous because a same word could have different meaning as well, actually. So, like, there could be two meanings. Again, is the way you use. Again, there could be a noun, there could be a verb. So, what could be the noun and what could be the verb? Can you use this? If I say beer or bear, so how would you use it as a noun and how would you use it as a verb?
Someone bearing something.
Yeah, so noun is of course the animal. The bear is roaming free around in the jungle. And the verb is I bear the bond, or I bear the loan, or I bear some kind of responsibility in society. So that will become a verb uses if you think about it. So that's the first ambiguity, right? And depending on the context only, you can understand that what would be the correct meaning of bear here, right? Same with that bull market example when I explained you. So it might not even be a word, it might be a phrase, and depending on the context, it might have a completely different meaning. Okay. Now uses also makes a lot of difference. So ideally, when you think about the word destructive or destruction, so what do you usually think about when I say the word destruction? What comes to your mind?
Destroying?
So basically it is some kind of a
Negative.
yeah, very good. It's a negative property, right? But I can say Bairstow batted destructively against some team. Okay. So now if I'm a fan of England or whichever team Bairstow is playing, for me that destructive or that destruction was a very positive thing. Now it's a very twisted idea, but when you start thinking about it, the meaning of destruction still has not changed. Think about it. But its connotation flips based on, do I support Bairstow or not? Or usually, do I get positively influenced by Bairstow or the team which he plays or not? Understand the very fine difference, what just happened here. Ideally, when we seek destruction, it is usually a very negative term. But let's say when my candidate beats the other candidates in polls and he destroys the other candidates, it's a very positive news for me, isn't it? So just switching, just depending, maybe the meaning exactly remains the same. It is like to actually cause harm or kind of really damage that person's, like anyways, it could be the life, you can do a harm to his life, or maybe you can harm the profession they are in. But depends how do you use the words playfully. If you are using it in these contexts, we understand that. Yeah, exactly. So that is where our language gets very tricky, and this is why I'm saying the fifth property which you need to remember is ambiguity. Ambiguity is not easy, is gonna be really hard to solve, and you will see these problems coming back again. Okay. And another phenomenon which has raised this has happened because of internet, of course, and I think someone already referred it. So slang or internet slang. So what is this slang exactly, or internet slang as we like to call it? So love has become LUV. Okay. And again, you can think about so many other words. Means some words have been just been shortened, some words have been replaced by something. Okay, so what does this means?
Be right back.
Be right back.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later, right? And this is the whole problem. We understand this because we have associated these symbols, but for a computer it's very hard. It's because these words are never found in any dictionary, and if by mistake if you remove them, you completely lose the meaning of them. Then there are special symbols like hashtags. So you might have heard about this news, and people started using this hashtag, I think 2 days back ago. So that was a very positive story on social media, to be very honest. But if you think about it, these hashtags again can cause a problem because again, this is a special symbol and it doesn't really contribute to anything to the meaning of that. Again, but that becomes a trend at the end of the day. And yeah, we do use sometimes special symbols. So hello can become like this. Okay. Now, this is where internet slang can also make your life very hard, or like if you are an NLP practitioner, you will really become very frustrated because of these kind of uses of the words, especially if you're downloading or using someone's chat as training data, you will start to see the problem after a while that lot of terminologies or lot of these terms might not make sense or would not get associated with your proper English uses. Do you agree? Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So continuing with the same idea. Okay. Now let me tell you something. Ideally, what happens in pure ML almost always works on structured data itself. So how do we make it work with some unstructured data?
Somehow we have to transform the data into structured data.
Yeah, basically you are right. If you have unstructured data, the trick is to transform into unstructured, sorry, my bad. If you have unstructured data, the trick is to convert it to structured data. Okay, so unstructured data has to be converted to structured data. The other thing is, ideally, symbols or strings ideally should be converted to numbers. And of course, you want to encode the context as well. Now, this is going to be hard actually. Encode to the context correctly actually. So unless you don't do that, that is going to be again another problem that you will run into very fast. So NLP is about, or natural language processing or pre-processing, let's call it processing actually. is mostly about converting unstructured data into structured data, symbol and all these strings to numbers, and basically you want to encode the context correctly. Okay, now I will show you step by step. Now it will take some time. Okay, so this is gonna be a long exercise, and there would be a lot of different exercises that you will have to do here. And you will see that it is definitely slightly different from whatever you are used to seeing so far. And in order to how to handle them successfully, I will also give you different ideas and different tools which might come in very handy. One thing that is a suggestion. Now, of course, we don't really cover that in very details. I have told Krishna to maybe cover this in much more detail, but again, you can learn things, okay? So I will definitely ask you on your own time if you get this. If you want to deal with unstructured database, you have to learn some NoSQL first of all. Now, I'm not going to teach you NoSQL, to be very honest, but still will let you know that this is going to be very important. Now, in NoSQL, MongoDB is the leader here. Okay, there is literally, I don't find competition from anyone, to be very honest. So to handle any kind of unstructured data, there are certain conventions we follow. So unstructured data can be usually passed through your XML data, XML files or JSON files. You can handle it through dictionaries in Python, in pure Python. Ideally, we stick with dictionaries for handling the unstructured data. Or in terms of DB, you should usually look for NoSQL datasets, and MongoDB happens to be one of the best ones if you have them. Means it is of course free and open source, so it's not a big deal that we can't get around it. Okay. So XML, JSON, dictionaries, and NoSQL are the way to go usually forward in the. So whenever you are doing communication over internet, means any kind of REST protocol or something, ideally we are sticking with XML and JSON. Within Python, I can tell you to use dictionaries. That will be the best way to handle them. And in DB, at DB level, you will have to think about NoSQL, because SQL datasets or classic DBMS or RDBMS datasets are not going to be good enough to handle the unstructured data. So even if you have not worked with these tools, means of course you have worked with dictionaries at least, you will need to learn a bit on your own as well. Okay, so that will be one task that you will have to do. I cannot teach you all of this, but still letting you know with my experience that with my experience, I can very easily tell you that it will not be easy without understanding the ways to handle unstructured data sets. So although I will try to kind of inoculate JSON, dictionaries, but still I might not be covering MongoDB altogether. So you will have to put some efforts in learning MongoDB if you regularly want to work with unstructured data sets. Is that clear?
Hi, Nitanj, I have one query.
Sure.
This XML, JSON are not exactly the unstructured, right? It's kind of semi-structured data, right?
You can say that. I was just saying what would be the good ways to handle unstructured data set, but yeah, you are right. XML and JSON will be more of a semi-structured. We cannot say it is totally unstructured. Means if you truly want to understand what will be unstructured data set, it could be a simple TXT file itself. Okay, it could be HTML, not HTML actually, even HTML has a structure. So proper text file or some flat files, they can only be technically called unstructured data set. The moment you put them in any data structure, you have just put them in a structure. So anyways, I can very easily say all of them actually happen to be semi-structured. Okay, so you are right in that observation, but the point is unless it's like a text file or some flat files, SAS files or something like that, any kind of structure, any kind of convention you put them in, it could be XML, JSON, it could be dictionaries in Python, because again, dictionary also have keys and value pairs. And then NoSQL also have the same idea, key and value pairs. So technically you are using semi-structured in all of these examples. So yeah, you are right. Basically, these happen to be semi-structured.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, Okay, guys. So I think just on an information basis, I just wanted to let you know that these are some of the ways you will contain or use unstructured data. And especially I will tell you to put some efforts if you regularly want to work with unstructured data around MongoDB, because that will be important. Okay. All right.
So can
Any
you give us
questions?
any link for MongoDB?
Okay, Miss, there are really good tutorials online. I can maybe find one and I can post them in the groups or somewhere. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Okay, any questions before I move forward? Okay, good. Yeah, sorry, was there a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
In real world, how do you encounter such data for natural language processing?
Actually, that was just my next topic. Okay, no problem. Yeah, that was I was gonna go. What are the application areas actually? Okay, so where natural language in computer systems is utilized. Okay, or like there are so many fields that it will take hours to talk about all of them. But let's start with one. The very first thing is we will do a lot of web scraping, and that's where the very first instances starts to come in play. Means let's say you want to understand what is the sentiment of nation right now. What you will do ideally?
We'll collect data from social media.
Fine, social media or news outlets. So you will go ahead and start web scraping. Anyone is a web developer here? They know how to scrape the web.
Using kind of applications like RPA or robotics, graphic tools.
Yeah, very good. Means of course you can write your own Python script. You can also make your own little spider, which can go ahead and run through various links and scrape all the content from there. So web scraping happens to be one of them, definitely. What could be another field where we might be using? So a lot of medical diagnosis and now these reports many times come in either handwritten or they might be even typed, but they are still gonna be a unstructured data set itself. Okay, any kind of diagnosis or anything that might have happened will almost remain as unstructured as we possibly can understand. What could be another field?
Sentiment analysis, topic modeling.
Yeah, there are so many actually sentiment analysis. So you might want to understand the sentiment of that text, and topic modeling is of course one of them. And we can also actually think about few of the different ones as well. One very important one is text generation. This is actually also important for chatbots as well. If you really truly want to make an intelligent chatbot, you will require text generation. Without that, it is almost impossible. Okay.
One question: this text generation is using NLG, the natural language generation. Is that part of that?
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about natural language. What are the use cases over there? So yeah, there could be NLU, NLG as well. Okay, so natural language understanding is one thing, natural language generation is one thing. Yeah, but again, they all happen to be use cases of natural language itself.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So what would be a good example of text generation?
As you said, chatbots.
Chatbots, okay. Means if you want to try it out, maybe I don't think so. I have actually groups for all of them, but the batch that I can see. Okay, guys, if you want to try something out, this is gonna be simply interesting. So what you could do is you can go in the group of June 2020 weekday batch. At least people who are over there. Otherwise, they can try on their own phones. You guys can start typing. So you can take your Android or iOS keyboards, and you have these prediction systems, right? So maybe
Yes,
types.
autocomplete. Yeah.
Yeah, so autocomplete, or it just kind of also provides you the next word, which might be a very high probability. So what I want you to do is, I want you to write some 9 words as it is. What am I telling you? Okay, so the 9 words will go like this: I am going to the mall, and then, okay, and then after that you give a space, and afterwards whatever comes in the 3 suggestion, the middle one, the middle suggestion you have to select. So till here I have just kind of posted over there. Now what I'm gonna do is I will
I can't see anything if you're writing. I don't know.
I'm doing it on actually WhatsApp actually.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So if you have your phones, you can look over there. Okay, so I'm going to because in my computer that will not work. So even if I were to try to show you on WhatsApp web, it is not gonna be working actually. So I'm going to the mall, and then I will just keep pressing my middle button, middle suggestion all the time, because that is the highest probability.
It has taken me to some Jaipur's Maliyanagar fire.
It's kept repeating then.
After
Yes,
a while.
yes. Same here.
Yeah, and you will see that based on your own chats, whatever regularly you have on WhatsApp, because Google kind of keeps track that this chat is going, or mostly we are chatting these days on WhatsApp itself. Right, and depending on your own experiences, and you will see that whatever you mostly talk about, and you will see that that pattern kind of starts to repeat. And of course, after a while, it will also start to completely repeat. So you can just try this. I'm going to the mall, and then just click on the middle one, middle suggestion. That is the most high probability suggestion, and just keep doing it for next 20 words or something. And after that, it might stop making sense, so you can stop as well. And just post it, and you will get really funny ones, but you will see everyone is personalized. And whatever they most talk about on their WhatsApp chat, accordingly, it will also kind of become in the similar direction if you think about it. You need to have this auto complete enabled actually with your keyboard. So if you are using Google keyboard or iOS keyboard, it usually is available. And maybe in the group, at least people who are in this group will be able to see it, that everyone's text generation is different, but it is also very personalized if you think about it. So just give it a try. It's a fun exercise, but just give it a try. Okay. So what I was trying to tell is text generation actually happens to be a very important use case. And you might have heard about in news media about certain models developed by Google and some other companies, which actually happen to be, let's see if Talk to Transformer is still live or they have taken it down. So these usually use some GPT-2 or BERT models. So ideally, you can write your own stuff. So let's say I have to choose here, or maybe I can go for custom prompt altogether. Okay, so the idea is you type something, okay, and the neural network will guess what comes next. So it will try to generate few things. Okay, so again, I can write, I am going to the mall, and then we will Okay, and let's see if it can generate something. See? Fun, isn't it? And it does become so sometimes real that a lot of people are worried that a lot of fake news can be generated by this one. So maybe I can generate some fake news or try to understand some fake news ideas that maybe we can try some simple stuff first. So let's try if what happens if I try to generate some news for let's say IBM. So IBM yesterday decided that it will split the company now to focus more on the cloud, and I think that's a good move. They cannot just keep making these bare metal servers and think they are going to stay in business. That's not going to happen. Okay, IBM has decided to split. So I will use the exact same lines which I read in the news yesterday. Split the company. Sorry. Two fractions in order to focus on cloud technologies. Let's see if this works. See?
Seems believable.
Not really. Because I can produce fake news like at a state that you will not even be realizing that all of this will be. So IBM, it has said IBM Cloud, so it read into cloud technologies, and it immediately decided again based on this, and hybrid cloud group will focus on IBM cloud areas. Now it is not perfect, but it also knows that IBM has bought Red Hat.
So is this checking the news in any way, or
No. Miss, it has, okay, so its training has been done on millions of billions of different online news, which Google and these companies basically collect. Okay, so they are shown as much world data as possible while training. So the idea is they are able to kind of get lot of historical context. So it is not clueless about IBM. Again, it doesn't really understand what IBM really is. It is just seeing a statistical pattern that these things usually come very close with IBM. Okay.
Yeah, so grammatically and sequencing wise, it is very correct. Might be.
Yeah, that's the whole point. This is why I'm saying it can also become very dangerous. That because I just need to put 1 or 2 lines here, and it will just complete, and it will just generate a almost any believable story, which is going to be false mostly. But yes.
Or is it doing it took this and Googled it and got the news that it
No. IBM has not decided what they will call them. That's the whole thing. They have not said they will be making a blockchain, but it just came up with this. It must have read a lot of news, or it must have gone through a lot of news about IBM or technical world, where it also sees. So a lot of people keep making this speculation, right? That yeah, at some point, means of course IBM news came today, but a lot of people were making speculation from last 2 years that IBM should be actually broken down now. It is not possible to keep a single entity. So based on those news items and the statistical correlation it saw, it figured out the best names possible would be IBM Cloud, Hybrid Cloud Group, and IBM Blockchain. Now think about, I wrote 2 factions. Now this is the whole trick. It doesn't really understand this. Okay, this is what you have to understand. It did not understand this. Why? Can you see why it did not get it?
Because it gave you 3 options: cloud, hybrid, and blockchain.
Yeah, it basically generated 3 of them: IBM Cloud, Hybrid Cloud Group, and IBM Blockchain. Okay, and it forgot that IBM itself is originally a company. So what happened to that company now? Because we understand you cannot still put all the IBM's work in just cloud. They still work in so many other domains. So there must be original IBM or some other name for that. And cloud is, so this is our understanding. We understand that that's not how a company will work. It will not, all of his previous work is not going to vanish in thin air. That will be just cloud, put into one, and maybe IBM Cloud would be the name of the next company. And we do not know about any blockchain that they are willing to work or in large scale. So we understand that we can detect that it's a fake news, but yeah, only because we are familiar with IBM. Understand what I'm trying to tell you? But this is where it becomes so dangerous. And again, because once if people get a hang of it and they want to
so this is with the GPT-2 or GPT-2 or GPT-3?
Yeah, GPT-2. GPT-3 people will not be able to fit on their RAMs itself. GPT-2 is at least you can fit it there. People will not be able to fit GPT-3. GPT-3 is only going to be available through API calls on Microsoft Azure. Okay.
Okay.
So they have already released a very great pricing that people are not going to be willing to pay that much. Okay. So, but again, it almost requires a supercomputer to run the whole thing. Okay. So same idea, guys. Again, you can talk to this one, and what I will do is I will place the link right here. So you guys can also experiment here, and you will see that computer or text generation is a tricky problem, but a lot of people have almost got some really good success in last 3-4 years itself. And again, we can try something else as so as we read more into machine learning, we realize that most of our techniques do not have generalized most of our techniques do not have generalized power, generalized advantage over other techniques. So if I think someone asked about writing technical papers, so I will although caution them, they will be detected very fast right now. One sec. So ideally you should try to keep the spelling as good as possible over other techniques. It all boils down to no free lunch theorem in mathematical optimization. So this time I wrote a bit technical, okay? Let's see what happens. And this is where it starts to break after a while. It has completely gone into another direction. Okay, this is not what we were even talking about. But this is where it will start to break. You will see that. So basically, I'm talking about no free lunch theorem, that no algorithm is inherently better than the other one. It just depends on the context or the problem statement. Okay, so some techniques work better with images, some techniques will work better with text. Okay, but there's no technique which is inherently better than the other. That is basically the no free lunch theorem, and it completely went into some other direction. It is more about the stochastic model selection, which I was not trying to get. Okay. So on technical side, it will still fail, but in a general English, means the point is you cannot use it in a domain specific problem. Okay. So that's where it really starts to fail. But if you just talk about general day-to-day things, and because most of its training has been done on news data, okay, worldwide news. So Google and these guys keep collecting all kinds of news throughout the world. So they will be doing through a normal thing. So if you were to say that water levels are rising dangerously throughout the world, and Bangkok is sinking faster than ever. So that is actually, this is an actual news, as you can understand. Right. And just you have to ensure that your spelling should be as correct, otherwise it will take a different detour altogether. Bangkok is sinking faster than ever. Right. Yes, now you will start to see. And after a while, again, you will see, but I have gotten some information about Bangkok, which is gonna be very same, actually gonna be very good actually. And you can read some news articles and you will find that these reasonings are correct actually, because again, as I told you, most of this training has been done on news articles. So if something comes in news regularly, you will see that explanation very great, amazing around that. And see this line specifically. I guess you can very easily tell it must be from some online news or blog actually. So are you able to understand what I am trying to talk about with the statistical mapping or just the understanding of natural language? Again, try to understand, however great these models are, GPT-2, BERT, or whatever they are, it doesn't matter. They are not inherently intelligent or anything. The way we understand language, they are not understanding it anyway. Believe me, that is, I am very, very clear about that. So please do not make any mistake that I'm trying to tell you something different. No. Try to understand this very easily intuitively. You have to understand this, of course, that nothing of that sort is actually happening here. Nothing of that sort. It's just a statistical correlation that it figures out in long run, basically. And it just kind of uses that statistical correlation, something like a Bayesian update and stuff, to kind of regenerate or provide you with that information that how might be this text might be related. And this, because the idea is this text also tends to show some statistical correlations. Okay, so I hope you guys can also talk to Transformer and maybe kind of generate some funny examples and maybe even post it in the group if you want to. All right.
Well, I typed COVID, but it doesn't I identify it as COVID-19. So
yeah.
it's
So
showing something different.
Yeah. So again, COVID. I hope you know that COVID is a class of viruses, right? So COVID-19 is that particular. Again, this training was done on GPT-2 early, I think 2 years ago. So of course, there it will not find almost any reference of COVID-19, but yeah, it might find something around COVID, because again, COVID is a class of these viruses.
It was something else, not some virus. It was like, I don't know. I just changed it and it
Yeah,
went.
no, look, again, as I told you, you cannot go very domain specific. Okay, try to understand. If you go like very technical domains or something which doesn't comes in news anyways, mostly it will not work. Already that is what I was trying to show with the machine learning example as well. That if I really want to write a technical paper from it, it is not gonna be easy, okay? It is not really technically trained as of now. There are variations of GPT and BERT, which are something is in biology, something is in chemistry, right? So BERT is another model by Google actually. So there are various variations of BERT models. So if you want to try BERT models, so like there is a biological one. Okay, so there is a BERT model, BioBERT. Yes, so yes. So this is a pre-trained biological language representation. So you can use BioBERT. I'm pretty sure there also exists something for chemistry as well. So you will have to basically retrain with the BERT norms. Yeah, ChemBERT, got it. So on Hugging Face, there is a very famous repository. So yeah, ChemBERT is available. And you will start to see that on a chemical side, if you want to use chemical smile strings, basically, if you want, you can use this ChemBERT basically. So this is what my point is. You can, of course, retrain them according to your chemistry or whatever needs you have. And accordingly, it will start to generate the text. Okay, and it can be basically utilized to generate the text as you demand or as you want to use. All right. But mostly these kind of talk to transformer or just some general examples ideally work in some domains that they want to do, and that will work. And of course you can use the custom prompt, but just be careful that do not go very domain specific. That is not going to be very helpful over there. Okay, all right. Any questions so far?
So all these models basically are probabilistic model of what can follow what in terms of
Yeah,
sequence. Right?
yeah, yeah.
Nobody has been able to come up with anything where they can get context in place, like what you were explaining in the beginning.
Miss, like, if you want to have that discussion, Miss, I can have that discussion actually, but that really tends to go very deep with the philosophical part as well at some
No,
point.
I
Okay.
was asking more like a one-liner. Yeah, it's happened like, but might, but yeah, still not up and running. Something like that. Not an
Okay,
explanation.
so Miss, okay. So there have been very famous debates on these problems. Okay, so people say that we think context of something magical or something, but what if it is just numbers at the end of the day? So if it is just numbers or if it is some kind of a signal representation, then it technically already has happened. Okay, means there are models which are almost doing the same thing. But that's the whole problem, right? Many times we like to think in terms of metaphysical, and might be something physical itself. It might be just signals. It might be just numbers. That given this number, you perform it like this. Okay, it might be that. But no one has been able to put the exact finger over there. People have tried different models, and transformers actually happen to be pretty great at this. But everyone can figure out loopholes here. Even in GPT-3, I can show you some simple tricks where it will fail immediately. So we can tell very easily, yeah, it doesn't really understand this, or it doesn't really does a good text generation on its own. It is just trying to find this statistical correlation on a very smart level or in a very general sense. Okay, so that is what it mostly is trying to do.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay. Okay, guys, three things I have to tell you before we get formally started in natural language. And again, mostly we might actually do it formally in the next class anyways. So one thing is I want you to download is Nltk. Now Nltk has been one of my favorites toolkits for natural language, of course. So what I will ask you to do is to install this. If you want to do it on your own system, you will have to install Nltk. And Nltk has a host of different tools available for us, and we will be using these tools again and again. So I will really expect you guys to download Nltk, install with your Anaconda, or you can also use it like me on Google Colab itself. Now, even on Google Colab, I will have to do the installation. Without that, it's not possible. But very simple. Simple idea is to install, do a pip install of Nltk. Okay, and there are definitely different. So let me do one thing as well. Let me share this notebooks link, and we might also be able to place this in some group where it might be common. So let me just provide you the link as well. Now, Analytica is definitely amazing, but for especially around neural networks, I have found Spacey is far better. So if you want to try something with more on the side of neural networks, or if you want to use API based a bit more, then you can look into Spacey. I personally find Spacey a very good library to work with, and it's pretty nice. The documentation is also given in a very lean fashion, which I personally admire. So Analytica toolkit is again amazing. The documentation is something that they could have done a better work, according to me at least. Okay, and another one is especially for the topic modeling, one needs to install Gensim. Okay, now Gensim is also gonna be available, so you can do a PyP installation again. So it's not very hard, and you can just simply have to do pip install Gensim. Okay, so Gensim is another project which will really come in very handy, especially around topic modeling topics. So Gensim is like a very targeted one. So you can do your pip install, or you could do a conda install as well. So both of options are available, and you guys can get ahead. And so mostly I will be sticking with Nltk, Spacey, and Gensim for most of my examples. Okay, so just thought to let you know beforehand, before we formally start everything. I wanted to let you know what kind of libraries we will be sticking and doing most of our work with. So ensure that by next class you have the installation done and you are ready to code with me.
Amrita, one small doubt. So,
Yeah.
does Google Assistant and Alexa and other voice controlling comes under this natural language processing, or?
Yeah, natural language processing, natural language understanding, they definitely come under these ideas itself. And basically, what they do is they convert your audio into text, from speech to text, and then do all kinds of means they run all kinds of algorithm in order to understand or work with your natural language itself.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys, so today was the basic introduction. I'm not going to keep it very long for today, and just ensuring that you understand what we have to deal with. Okay, guys, so the idea will start